right, go ahead and turn to Matthew chapter 4. Matthew chapter 4. I am hoping, I am determined, bound and determined to get through chapter 4 tonight, which means I probably won't, but I am determined. And we should. We have some basic issues to cover. Again, some introductory issues concerning the healing ministry of Christ. And we don't have anything presented for us in detail right now because that's not what's presented to us. So we need to appreciate some basic issues, again, that set the tenor of his ministry. We saw last time, we began to see the issues that were set forth, the major facets of his preaching, the healing, of course, which we'll be getting to more in tonight, but then the teaching and preaching. And we appreciated some of the differences that are there. They go hand in hand. They're not mutually exclusive, but they do have different flavors and tenors to them. Ideally, biblically, they are joined together. So really, all good teaching should have some preaching in there, and good preaching should have good teaching. However, it is possible to have bad teaching but good preaching. That is, and you know that there are texts which are sitting in Scripture which make for really good preaching. If you were to break the message down and analyze it, and really scrutinize it as far as the doctrine developed from the text is concerned, you'd say there's some serious things lacking. Oftentimes you can teach a lot of bad things even though it makes good preaching. So it is what it is. Sometimes that's legitimate. Sometimes there are things you can use. There's a lot of passages that you can play fast and loose with that will make good preaching, but they don't always make good teaching. And there's a lot of things that are really good teaching, but they don't always necessarily make good preaching. And then, of course, it's always a matter of in whose mouth it is as well. So those are some basic issues, but let's turn now to the issue of the healing. Again, only some general issues. We're gonna flesh out some more specifics as we continue on through the gospel accounts, and we see some particular instances. But right now we're only having the general tenor set forth. Matthew chapter 4, and again we'll start in verse 12. What we want is really starting with verse 23, but let's just refresh ourselves. Matthew chapter 4 and verse 12. Now when Jesus had heard that John was cast into prison, he departed into Galilee. And leaving Nazareth, he came and dwelt in Capernaum, which is upon the seacoast, in the borders of Zebulun and Naphtali, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by Isaiah the prophet, saying, The land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, by the way of the sea, beyond Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. The people which sat in darkness saw a great light, and to them which sat in the region and shadow of death, light is sprung up. From that time Jesus began to preach and to say, Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And Jesus, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw two brethren, Simon called Peter, and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishers. And he saith unto them, Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. And they straightway left their nets, and followed him. And going on from thence he saw other two brethren, James the son of Zebedee, and John his brother, in a ship with Zebedee their father, mending their nets, and he called them. And they immediately left the ship and their father, and followed him. And Jesus went about all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, and preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing all manner of sickness and all manner of disease among the people. And his fame went throughout all Syria, and they brought unto him all sick people that were taken with divers diseases and torments, and those which were possessed with devils, and those which were lunatic, and those that had the palsy, and he healed them. And there followed him great multitudes of people from Galilee, and from Decapolis, and from Jerusalem, and from Judea, and from beyond Jordan. All right, come over to Luke chapter 7. Luke chapter 7. So again, these are, what we're going to begin to see with the healing is particularly this issue of casting out devils and healing the sick. You'll often hear it referred to as the two hallmark signs of the kingdom, and that is precisely what they are. They encompass the totality of the restoration, the removal of the curse, and the sanctification that there is in connection with that. And we'll be seeing that more and more, how sanctification is really key in this issue of the healing ministry of Christ as he's preparing them for the kingdom. So it's both a preparation and it's the signs, it is the signal manifestations of what that kingdom is going to look like. They've been prepared for this all throughout the law and the prophets. We've seen many of the passages of Scripture relating to that, and we're going to see some more tonight. So you'll often hear him referred to that, and rightly so, the two hallmark signs of the kingdom, healing the sick and casting out devils. And everything can be summed up in that little phrase. And so much so that This was to have a tremendous impact on Israel when the Messiah shows up. Those in Israel were not supposed to simply be wowed and say, wow, this is just amazing, this is just marvelous, this is just wonderful. It certainly has an impact on them. But they're supposed to be prepared doctrinally to know that this was what was going to happen when their God came. When their God, who Christ is, and they know the doctrine of the Christ, they know the doctrines concerning the Davidic covenant, they know who the doctrine says that Christ is going to be. He is going to be the Son of David, which is to say the Son of God. He's not merely David's son in the flesh. He's to be the Son of David is a messianic title. It is a title of the Davidic covenant, and it references also that Son of God issue. And so they understood that when their God came, that it was going to look like some particular things. He was going to do some particular things with respect to being that true shepherd and sanctifying the people and removing the ungodliness and the filth and the corruption that naturally follows the curse, which is tied to themselves, the things that they can't remove themselves because they don't have it within them because of their sin nature. Even if they wanted to, they couldn't remove this unfilthiness and this filthiness and this uncleanness from themselves. He's going to come, and as he begins to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord and provide grace and mercy to his people, and he's going to say, come to me, all ye that are burdened and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. He says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Come unto me. That's the message that's beginning to be given to his people, the people that are just laden and burdened with all kinds of sin and the condemnation of their sin, because they know what it means. They know what it means to live under the curses and the chastisement and the condemnation of the law contract and now this fifth course of punishment. And now the great healer, the physician, is here, and in his grace and in his mercy, for no other reason, he's going to call them all to him, unto himself, and say, whosoever will, let him come. Whosoever will, let him come. Their relationship to the law is not going to be an issue with respect to that if they're willing to respond in faith to the word he declares. He promises to set them free. He promises to give them liberty, and he's going to manifest it and show it with the signs of the kingdom. So Luke chapter 7, and we'll start in verse 18. So this is what a great impact that this issue of healing the sick and casting out devils should have to the observer in Israel. Luke chapter 7 and verse 18. And the disciples of John showed him of all these things. And John, calling unto him 2 of his disciples, sent them to Jesus, saying, Art thou he that should come, or look we for another? When the men were come unto him, they said, John the Baptist has sent us unto thee, saying, Art thou he that should come, or look we for another? And in that same hour he cured many of their infirmities and plagues, and of evil spirits, and unto many that were blind he gave sight. Then Jesus answering said unto them, Go your way, and tell John what things ye have seen and heard, how that the blind see, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, to the poor the gospel is preached, and blessed is he whosoever shall not be offended in me. And so that's the main thing he points to when it comes to, well, how do we know that it's you, or are we supposed to look for another? He's going to say, look, this is what you tell him. This is what you've seen, and this is what you've heard. And he summarizes the very tenor of the ministry, which we're being introduced to right at the beginning. He's healing the sick. He's casting out the devils. He's also raising the dead. He's healing all manner of sickness and all manner of disease, as the passage there in Matthew declares. So when he wants to give the testimony and proof of his ministry, he refers back to that basic tenor we're being given now. Now, there's some interesting things with respect to that, because that is the sure testimony now. What we're going to see as we continue on through the Gospels, and then as you go further on in Israel's program, while those signs and wonders are a guarantee now of his ministry, they're not going to be that after this time is over. Once this time is over, they're going to have to beware, because there are going to be some other people who are going to have some abilities with respect to signs and wonders, and they're going to be deceiving, and they're going to be lying. And so it's fascinating, because if you were to you wouldn't be able to give it the same weight and rely upon it in complete truth as you are here. So that's rather interesting. That says a lot of things. It says a lot of things about the power of Satan, among other things, what it is and what it isn't, and under what circumstances it may or may not be manifested. So that's very instructive. Come over to Matthew chapter 11. And again, the hour is late for us, so I'm going to try to see hopefully get through some of these passages as quickly as we can and still do justice to the topic. Matthew chapter 11, and well, scratch that. I don't want to. Come over to Luke chapter 4. Luke chapter 4. And while you have your hand in there, also keep your hand in there. You might be keeping your hand there for a while. Come over to Exodus as well, Exodus chapter 23. So keep a hand in Luke 24, get a hand in Exodus chapter 23. You're also going to have to be flexible in your hands and maybe ambidextrous. Exodus chapter 23. So let's look a little bit about how this fits into his ministry and why it is that he's healing. Because it's more than just to say, well, I'm the Messiah. That's true. But the reason he is doing it is because he's the Messiah. It serves as a proof of him being Messiah. And how I'm going to say this. It's proof of him being Messiah only in a secondary sense. That is, it's so because it's so. But the fact of the matter is that the reason he's doing it, it says something different. It's part of a ministry that he has to fulfill. So naturally, since that's the ministry he has to fulfill, him doing it is proof of his ministry. It's proof of his messiahship. But that's not the main reason he's doing it. He's doing it for some other reasons in connection with his sanctification of the people. Exodus 23 and let's start in verse 20. Again, these are the things that Israel, if they were paying attention, were doctrinally aware. They knew there were certain things which were going to happen when their God came, when their God showed up. And when Christ shows up and does these things, that is exactly who he is. He is God. Exodus chapter 23 and verse 20. Behold, I send an angel before thee to keep thee in the way and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. That, of course, will become very relevant because they're going to be dealing with some other angelic ministries as they continue on in their program, particularly as it moves into the day of the vengeance of our God. And you can see Revelation for more of the details on that and the angelic ministries. Verse 21, beware of him and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. But if thou shalt indeed obey his voice, and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy unto thine enemies, and an adversary unto thine adversaries. For mine angel shall go before thee, and bring thee in unto the Amorites, and the Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the Canaanites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, and I will cut them off. Thou shalt not bow down to their gods, nor serve them, nor do after their works, but thou shalt utterly overthrow them, and quite break down their images. And ye shall serve the Lord your God, and he shall bless thy bread, and thy water, and I will take sickness away from the midst of thee. There shall nothing cast their young, nor be barren in thy land. The number of thy days I will fulfill. Come over to Deuteronomy chapter 7. Deuteronomy chapter 7. This thing is all-encompassing, reaching not merely to their entire person, that is, their entire spirit, soul, and body, and that's what that all manner of sickness and disease and devils and palsy reach to. They reach to the spirit, soul, and body. And that thing is going to encompass all of that. It's going to encompass mind and heart and physical body and emotionally. Preaching that gospel is doing just that, as we'll see some of those other passages. Healing the brokenhearted, strengthening them. Deuteronomy chapter 7, and we'll start in verse 12. Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse 12. Wherefore it shall come to pass, if ye hearken to these judgments, and keep, and do them, that the Lord thy God shall keep unto thee the covenant and the mercy which he sware unto thy fathers. And he will love thee, and bless thee, and multiply thee. He will also bless the fruit of thy womb, and the fruit of thy land, thy corn, and thy wine, and thine oil, the increase of thy kine, and the flocks of thy sheep, in the land which he sware unto thy fathers to give thee. Thou shalt be blessed above all people. There shall not be male or female barren among you, or among your cattle. And the Lord will take away from thee all sickness, and will put none of the evil diseases of Egypt, which thou knowest, upon thee, but will lay them upon all them that hate thee. And thou shalt consume all the people which the Lord thy God shall deliver thee. Thine eye shall have no pity upon them, neither shalt thou serve their gods, for that will be a snare unto thee. If thou shalt say in thine heart, these nations are more than I, how can I dispossess them? keep hearing that word possess and dispossess. Thou shalt not be afraid of them, but shalt well remember what the Lord thy God did unto Pharaoh and unto all Egypt, the great temptations which thine eyes saw, and the signs and the wonders and the mighty hand and the stretched out arm, whereby the Lord thy God brought thee out. So shall the Lord thy God do unto all people of whom thou art afraid. Come over to Psalm 103. Psalm 103. Psalm 103. Psalm 103 and verse 1. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits, who forgiveth all thine iniquities, who healeth all thy diseases. You're going to see those two consistently joined. You're going to see Christ himself explicitly join those two issues. Those are the issues of that grace and mercy. Those are the issues of that new covenant with respect to what he's going to do with the nation and bringing in that kingdom. The new covenant being essential to being able to provide them and deliver them and bring them into that kingdom and bring that kingdom of heaven on earth. Who forgiveth all thine iniquities, who healeth all thy diseases. They're joined together. Come over to Job 29. Job 29. Job 29. Job 29, and let's start in verse 12. Job's recounting some things. It's going to be interesting the way that he's going to describe some aspects of his life and doing the righteousness. Right? There's a certain righteousness. There's a righteousness in its ultimate sense when we think of it sort of in terms of perfect righteousness, and there's also righteousness in the practical sense. There are certain things which people do which you can say, well, that's either righteous or unrighteous. That's not necessarily touching upon the issue of a perfect righteousness. But there are practical issues with respect to that. And starting in verse 12, he says, Because I delivered the poor that cried, and the fatherless, and him that had none to help him, the blessing of him that was ready to perish came upon me, and I caused the widow's heart to sing for joy. I put on righteousness, and it clothed me. My judgment was as a robe and a diadem. I was eyes to the blind, and feet was I to the lame. I was a father to the poor, and the cause which I knew not I searched out. And I brake the jaws of the wicked, and plucked the spoil out of his teeth. Then I said, I shall die in my nest, and I shall multiply my days as the sand. Now, of course, when he says, I was eyes to the blind and feet was I to the lame, I think you can figure out what he's talking about there. We can do that today even. But, of course, the interesting thing is that with Christ as that ultimate fulfillment, he's going to be doing that all right. He's going to be providing that righteousness, but it's going to be in a far greater sense. He's actually going to be able to give the blind their sight back. He's going to be able to be sight for the blind in a very literal sense, not just as a guide and not just as a help and not just as someone who assists and does good things for people, but he's actually going to be that sight for them. Those that are going to abide in him, those that are going to receive the mercy that he's actually providing for the entire land as he shines that light, he's actually literally going to be that sight for them. He's literally going to be the legs for those lame men. Those are the issues that are going to consistently come up again and again and again. Come over to Leviticus 21. Leviticus 21. Leviticus 21. And so as we've already seen with respect to this baptism, one of the things he's doing is as part of this sanctification, is he's preparing them particularly as a kingdom of priests. He's preparing them to be what they're going to be called, the ministers of our God. And he's preparing them for a ministry that they're going to have with respect to the nations. And so as part of that, there's righteousness to fulfill with respect to that sanctification. Just as he told John the Baptist, he said, thus it becometh us to fulfill all righteousness. Therefore, we're going to do some things, and we're going to begin something, and he's going to get underway with a particular ministry, and he's going to provide a particular type of sanctification for the people. Leviticus 21, and let's start in verse 16. Leviticus 21, verse 16. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron, saying, Whosoever he be of thy seed in their generations, that hath any blemish, let him not approach to offer the bread of his God. For whatsoever man he be that hath a blemish, he shall not approach, a blind man, or a lame, or he that hath a flat nose, or anything superfluous. I mean, God's pretty picky. But that's how exacting he gets. We're going to see he gets that way with those sacrifices too, right? Those sacrifices were to be without spot and without blemish. You say that's a pretty high and hard standard. It sure is. So you better have one that's able to provide it. And he's able to be both that sacrifice and thereby take upon himself all those iniquities and transgressions and infirmities and impute that righteousness to them. Not just in some ethereal, spiritual, doctrinal sense, which it certainly is that, but in a very real, tangible, literal sense. He's going to physically, before all their eyes, restore them to wholeness, restore them to health, restore them to completeness, without spot or blemish. Verse 19, or a man that is broken-footed, or broken-handed, or crook-backed, or a dwarf, or that hath a blemish in his eye, or be scurvy, or scabbed, or hath his stones broken. You know, for a lot of these reasons, some of these things that Brother Corey's in business and is able to provide and make a living. But the fact of the matter is that while he wishes Christ were here, if he were here, you'd be out of business. You'd be out of business. There's a lot of people that would be out of business because, as he says, he is the great physician. He is the God that healeth thee. He says, I am the God that healeth thee, Jehovah Rophekah. And that cleansing and that sanctification has healing as part of that. As we've already seen a lot of those passages with respect to the law, it was because of that disobedience that not only various things were going to happen with their enemies and all the rest of it, but these are all the effects of the curse. And the blessings of the kingdom and the blessing of God's favor has to do with that supernatural lifting and removal of the effects of the curse. And that's all you're seeing. You're seeing the intensification and the feeling of the effects of that curse upon them. But this was going to be his nation. This is something which all the nations have always experienced. Right? They may not necessarily experience it in that direct way as far as viewing it as a punishment from God or a judgment from God, but all the nations do. That's why one of the things he specifically says, he says, I'll put none of the diseases of Egypt upon you. There were things that were being experienced by the world, but his people had the opportunity not to experience that. Well, because of that sin issue, they don't live up to the terms of the contract, and they end up getting those diseases. But one of the things he says in verse 21, no man that hath a blemish of the seed of Aaron, the priest, shall come nigh to offer the offerings of the Lord made by fire. He hath a blemish. He shall not come nigh to offer the bread of his God. And of course he's going to say, I am the bread of life. He shall eat the bread of his God, both of the most holy and of the holy. Only he shall not go in under the veil, nor come nigh unto the altar, because he hath a blemish. That he profane not my sanctuaries, for I, the Lord, do sanctify them. And Moses told it unto Aaron, and to his sons, and unto all the children of Israel. Come over to Deuteronomy chapter 15. Deuteronomy 15. They shall be called the ministers of our God. They shall be priests and kings. Deuteronomy 15. And again, let's start in verse. Let's start in verse 15. Deuteronomy 15, verse 15. And thou shalt remember that thou wast a bondman in the land of Egypt, and the Lord thy God redeemed thee. Therefore I command thee this thing today. And it shall be, if he say unto thee, I will not go away from thee, because he loveth thee and thine house, because he is well with thee, then thou shalt take an awl, and thrust it through his ear under the door, and he shall be thy servant forever, and also unto thy maidservant thou shalt do likewise. It shall not seem hard unto thee when thou sendest him away free from thee, for he hath been worth a double hired servant to thee, in serving thee 6 years, and the Lord thy God shall bless thee in all that thou doest. All the firstling males that come of thy herd and of thy flock, thou shalt sanctify unto the Lord thy God. Thou shalt do no work with the firstling of thy bullock, nor shear the firstling of thy sheep. Thou shalt eat it before the Lord thy God year by year in the place which the Lord shall choose, thou and thy household. And if there be any blemish therein, as if it be lame, or blind, or have any ill blemish, thou shalt not sacrifice it unto the Lord thy God. Thou shalt eat it within thy gates. The unclean and the clean person shall eat it alike, as the roebuck and as the hart. Only thou shalt not eat the blood thereof, thou shalt pour it upon the ground as water. So no lame, blind, and ill blemish. Come over to Malachi chapter 1. Malachi chapter 1. Malachi chapter 1, start in verse 6. Malachi 1 and verse 6. A son honoreth his father, and a servant his master. If then I be a father, where is mine honor? And if I be a master, where is my fear? Saith the Lord of hosts unto you, O priests, that despise my name. And ye say, wherein have we despised thy name? Ye offer polluted bread upon mine altar. And ye say, wherein have we polluted thee? In that ye say, the table of the Lord is contemptible. And if ye offer the blind for sacrifice, is it not evil? And if ye offer the lame and sick, is it not evil? Offer it now unto thy governor. That's harsh stuff. I'm sorry, I like that part of the Lord. That's what it sounds like when the Lord gets to preaching. You don't. That's the Lord talking, and that's his attitude. Is it not evil? And if ye offer the lame and sick, is it not evil? Offer it now unto thy governor. Is he going to take it? You think he's going to accept it? And then you're going to offer it to me? Will he be pleased with thee? Or accept thy person, saith the Lord of hosts? And now I pray you, beseech God that he will be gracious unto us. This hath been by your means. Will he regard your persons, saith the Lord of hosts? Who is there even among you that would shut the doors for naught? Neither do ye kindle fire on mine altar for naught. I have no pleasure in you, saith the Lord of hosts, neither will I accept an offering at your hand. For from the rising of the sun even to the going down of the same, my name shall be great among the Gentiles, and in every place incense shall be offered unto my name, and a pure offering, for my name shall be great among the heathen, saith the Lord of hosts. But ye have profaned it, in that ye say, the table of the Lord is polluted, and the fruit thereof, even his meat, is contemptible. Ye said also, behold, what a weariness is it, and ye have snuffed at it, saith the Lord of hosts, and ye brought that which was torn, and the lame, and the sick. Thus ye brought an offering. Should I accept this of your hand, saith the Lord? But cursed be the deceiver, which hath in his flock a male, and voweth, and sacrificeth unto the Lord a corrupt thing. For I am a great king, saith the Lord of hosts, and my name is dreadful among the heathen. Now there's a lot of interesting things about that passage, not the least of which being he connects in all of that issue of that ministry that's going to go forth to the Gentiles. And you begin to see the Lord, that's what the Lord's beginning to do now. He's beginning to prepare his people for that. And that's what you're going to see in those circumcision epistles and in Revelation. Peter's going to talk about that day of visitation amongst the Gentiles. That's what God's getting ready for. He's getting prepared and ready for that ministry that they're going to have as that kingdom of priests and holy nation. But remember, as we've already seen, one of the things he's beginning to do now is call out his sheep. That's what you've just been introduced to right before this. And now as he's going out and searching out his sheep himself in person, this is God doing it, as we're going to see again from Ezekiel. He is going, and as he finds those sheep, he's restoring them. He's taking away that lameness. He's taking away that blindness. And that's the marvelous thing about it. This was a matter of, okay, only offer these unto the Lord. The Lord's actually going to go out there to those sheep that are lame and that are blind and that are sick and that are miserable, and he's not going to say, well, you're no good, I can only take this. He's going to restore them and heal them himself in person. That's a precious thing. It's a marvelous thing. Come over to Ezekiel 34. Ezekiel chapter 34. Ezekiel chapter 34. Myron, what time are we at? 29. Ezekiel 34. Ezekiel 34 and, well, start in verse 1. I only want a couple of verses. But in, Ezekiel 34 and verse 1. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. Prophesy and say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God unto the shepherds, Woe be to the shepherds of Israel that do feed themselves. We're going to encounter as we get on in the Gospels, again, many decades from now. And you're talking about up near 23 by that point as far as chapters go. But you're going to start to hear him say, Woe, woe, woe be unto you. Woe be unto you, scribes and Pharisees. Hypocrites, woe be unto you. Woe, woe. Why? Because they're false shepherds. Thus saith the Lord God unto the shepherds, Woe be to the shepherds of Israel that do feed themselves. Should not the shepherds feed the flocks? Ye eat the fat, and ye clothe you with the wool. Ye kill them that are fed, but ye feed not the flock. The diseased, that's a key word that's going to come up again and again in the gospel accounts. He heals all manner of sickness and disease. The diseased have ye not strengthened, neither have ye healed that which was sick, neither have ye bound up that which was broken, neither have ye brought again that which was driven away, neither have ye sought that which was lost, but with force and with cruelty have ye ruled them. And that's what he's doing as he's preaching the gospel of the kingdom. Remember, he's the beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, to bound up the brokenhearted, to heal the brokenhearted, to strengthen the weak knees, to strengthen those who are feeble and who mourn in Zion. Come over to verse 21. Verse 21. And I, the Lord, what did I tell you, 21, right? Why am I reading 24? What's the matter with you people? Come on. Verse 21. Because ye have thrust with side and with shoulder, and pushed all the diseased with your horns, till ye have scattered them abroad. Therefore will I save my flock, and they shall no more be a prey. And I will judge between cattle and cattle. And I will set up one shepherd over them, and he shall feed them, even my servant David. He shall feed them, and he shall be their shepherd. And I, the Lord, will be their God. And my servant David, a prince among them. I, the Lord, have spoken it. And I will make with them a covenant of peace, and will cause the evil beast to cease out of the land. And they shall dwell safely in the wilderness, and sleep in the woods. And I will make them the places round about my hill a blessing. Blessed is he that, blessed is he that, blessed is he that. And I will cause the shower to come down in his season. There shall be showers of blessing. You ever heard there's a song that goes like that? Some of you know that. The rest of you are reprobates. Verse 27. And the tree of the field shall yield her fruit, and the earth shall yield her increase. And they shall be safe in their land, and shall know that I am the Lord, when I have broken the bands of their yoke, and delivered them out of the hand of those that serve themselves of them. Oh, my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Verse 28, And they shall no more be a prey to the heathen, neither shall the beasts of the land devour them, but they shall dwell safely, and none shall make them afraid. And I will raise up for them a plant of renown, and they shall be no more consumed with hunger in the land, neither bear the shame of the heathen any more. Thus shall they know that I, the Lord their God, am with them, and that they, even the house of Israel, are my people, saith the Lord God. And ye, my flock, the flock of my pasture, are men, and I am your God, saith the Lord God. And what he's doing now is we're beginning to see in the gospel accounts, this is exactly what he's beginning to say to them personally. They're no longer just going to be hearing these words from either the mouths of the prophets and from the words that are on the page. They're actually going to have God himself is among them in the flesh, speaking these words of comfort to them personally. Because that's his care for them. Because this is his true heart. But it always has to be on his terms. And they're the terms of grace. Because that's the only way they're going to get their kingdom. It's the only way they're going to get the fullness and wholeness that God has purposed for them. Come over to Matthew chapter 8. Matthew chapter 8. Matthew chapter 8. And do you still have your hand in Luke chapter 4? If you don't, I understand. So Matthew chapter 8 and Luke chapter 4. So again, when this gets summed up, this is his heart. And this is what's being manifested to them and fulfilled for them. Luke chapter 4. Luke chapter 4 and verse 17. And there was delivered unto him the book of the prophet Isaiah. And when he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written, The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord. That is what is being preached to them, and that is what is being preached both with words and with signs and with wonders. Come back over to Matthew chapter 8. Matthew chapter 8, and also get Isaiah 61. Matthew chapter 8 and Isaiah 61. And of course, this is just one of the many passages that's drawing from. This one most particularly there from Luke chapter 4 in Isaiah 61. And of course, in Isaiah 61 and verse 1, he of course goes through that exactly what we just read. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord hath anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. And of course, this is where the Lord stopped and closed the book. But the time is going to come, as he makes clear, when he's going to open it up again. And the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all that mourn, to appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called trees of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he might be glorified. And they shall build the old waste, they shall raise up the former desolations, and they shall repair the waste cities, the desolations of many generations. And strangers shall stand and feed your flocks, and the sons of the alien shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers. But ye shall be named the priests of the Lord. Men shall call you the ministers of our God. Ye shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, and in their glory shall ye boast yourselves. For your shame ye shall have double, and for confusion they shall rejoice in their portion. Therefore in their land they shall possess the double, everlasting joy shall be unto them. For I, the Lord, love judgment. I hate robbery for burnt offering, and I will direct their work in truth. And I will make an everlasting covenant with them. And their seed shall be known among the Gentiles, and their offspring among the people. All that see them shall acknowledge them, that they are the seed which the Lord hath blessed. I will greatly rejoice in the Lord. My soul shall be joyful in my God. For he hath clothed me with the garments of salvation. He hath covered me with the robe of righteousness. As a bridegroom decketh himself with ornaments, and as a bride adorneth herself with her jewels. For as the earth bringeth forth her bud, and as the garden causeth the things that are sown in it to spring forth, so the Lord God will cause righteousness and praise to spring forth before all the nations. Again, you see how that's connected with him specifically preparing them as being those priests and ministers. In fact, going so far as beyond that to say, this is what men shall call you. Their ministry and their calling and their doctrine will be so manifest, the impact of it. Men shall call you this. There's going to be a great doctrinal awareness and understanding in that day amongst all people. Okay, come back over to Matthew chapter 8. Also get a hand in Matthew chapter 4. Matthew 8 and Matthew 4. Matthew chapter 8 and Matthew chapter 4. And we'll try to go through some of these things quickly because for the most part there are things which are pretty self-evident. And they're only meant to set forth the basic tenor right now. As we continue on through the Gospels, we'll be dealing with certain aspects of them a little more in depth. But for right now, there's some pretty basic issues which are being demonstrated before us. But we need to appreciate how they fit into the program. So Matthew chapter 4 and verse 23. And Jesus went about all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom and healing all manner of sickness and all manner of disease among the people. Now, that thing is all-encompassing, as we've said. That covers spirit, soul, and body. You have that all manner of sickness and all manner of disease. That about covers everything you could possibly imagine from every which way. Whether you're talking about mentally, emotionally, whether you're talking about physically, whether you're dealing with the heart and other moral issues, we'll have reason to talk about that at great length. You have an interesting thing where it talks about evil. It talks about evil diseases, for instance. Right now, that shouldn't throw you so much, but you have that coming up in the same kind of context that you talk about evil spirits, for instance. Okay, well, what's the relevance between that and the issue of, let's see, all manner of sicknesses and all manner of diseases and torments and plagues and other things? Because that's where this issue of evil spirits and Christ's sanctifying ministry comes up. So we're not going to deal with that at length tonight, but we will be dealing with some of those issues as we continue on through the Gospels, because there's some things about that I don't think are often maybe appreciated, and we'll leave it at that for now. So you're going to see that. You're going to see these evil spirits issues. You see that in the same context of evil diseases, and it's coming up in this context that we're seeing now in the tenor of Christ's healing ministry. His casting out of those devils, those issues of those evil spirits and unclean spirits is part of his sanctifying ministry with respect to the people. And it has a relationship to all those kinds of torments and other sicknesses and things that we're seeing, and its effects on the people, as we'll see. So you have that issue of diseases and torments. There's a lot of passages we're not going to look at, but I encourage you to go and look up the issues where it deals with issues of torments. That thing is all-encompassing. That's not merely, it's pretty descriptive. We understand that now. I'm sure, Corey, you see that all the time in your work, that issue of torments. You experience it. All of us experience it to one degree or another, and that's a crippling thing. It doesn't matter whether it's emotional or what have you. It has all kinds of impacts, not just pain-wise, but in the way that we view ourselves when people are crippled or lame or things that has an impact on their ability to function, even mentally, even emotionally. That issue of being incomplete or feeling unwhole, even God's perspective on it. Again, that's a very politically incorrect way of viewing certain things. But you see the way the Lord talked about certain issues, and there was no question in His mind that there were certain issues which were not ideal, and these are effects of the curse. Now, in light of that, what He wants to see is you ought to be strengthening those feeble knees. You ought to be helping those lame. You ought to be feeding the flock. You ought to be seeking to comfort those that are in that disease state and mourning, just as Job talked about in walking in what he was doing in his time, a sort of a righteousness ministry, if you will. But so there's a lot to that, and all I can say is you can meditate on that in your own life and people you know and situations that you're aware of. But that torments issue is all-encompassing, and the effects that the curse has on people, and the impact it has on your ability to even function in daily life. It doesn't have to, but it can be very difficult, particularly if you haven't experienced it before. And then you find yourself in a state where you're not able to function as you once did, and all the things you took for granted are taken away from you. That causes you to have great sorrow oftentimes. And the Lord is there to comfort all of that and restore all of them and remove all of that sorrow and all the infirmities and bring wholeness and healing and restoration to the people. So you see that one of the things you're going to see covered is, and this thing, just diseases. Pick a disease, pick a name. That thing is all-encompassing. It's got all kinds of details that Corey could tell us all about that I'm not interested in hearing. You've got devils. You're going to find out that among the many things you're dealing with, you're going to be dealing with a lot of moral, spiritual type issues with respect to those devils. It's all tied in with all manner of sickness and disease and torments and plagues and what have you. Those lunatic issues you're dealing with, particularly a lot of the issues of the mind. also some emotions issues, but a lot of those emotions are tied in with all of those things. But the mind in particular, that lunatic issue, with respect to the effects of the curse and impacting the issues with respect to the very neurological and other issues that go on with man. And then, of course, the palsy, you can probably guess what that is, even if you didn't know. You see sort of variations of that when you see, like, paralytic. That's what that palsy type issue is. You're going to see all this stuff, you're going to see these examples. Just quickly, if you come over to Matthew chapter 8, just one example. Again, right now, you just have the tenor of the ministry being set forth, those basic issues being highlighted, and then as the accounts go on, you're going to come back and hit those particular issues and have the specific incidences dealt with. Matthew chapter 8, and start in verse. Let's start in verse 5. Well, I'll start in verse 1. Matthew 8 and verse 1. When he was come down from the mountain, great multitudes followed him. And behold, there came a leper and worshipped him, saying, Lord, if thou wilt, thou canst make me clean. And Jesus put forth his hand and touched him, saying, I will, be thou clean. And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. And so, of course, this is one who's got a real, they talk about the Midas touch. He's got a holy touch. Because normally, if you go around touching unclean things, then you become unclean. You've got one who's able to touch the unclean thing and make it clean. That's power. That's a holy touch. And verse 4, And Jesus saith unto him, See thou tell no man, but go thy way, show thyself to the priest, and offer the gift that Moses commanded for a testimony unto them. Priests keep coming into that as well. That's part of their ministry. Verse 5, And when Jesus was entered into Capernaum, there came unto him a centurion, beseeching him, and saying, Lord, my servant lieth at home, sick of the palsy, grievously tormented. And Jesus saith unto him, I will come and heal him. I mean, that in itself is kind of interesting. You think, well, he's at home with the palsy. He lieth sick at home with the palsy. Okay, so he's, maybe it's a vacation. Maybe he doesn't have to work for his centurion master. But it's a torment. It's a torment. There's probably a lot of other things going on as well. But just that issue of that alone is a torment. And a lot of people can understand that who have experienced issues like that when your entire life is interrupted. For I am a man, verse 9, verse 7. And Jesus saith unto him, I will come and heal him. The centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy that thou shouldest come under my roof, but speak the word only, and my servant shall be healed. For I am a man under authority, having soldiers under me, and I say to this man, Go, and he goeth, and to another, Come, and he cometh, and to my servant, Do this, and he doeth it. When Jesus heard it, he marveled, and said to them that followed, Verily I say unto you, I have not found so great faith, no, not in Israel. And I say unto you that many shall come from the east and west, and shall sit down with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the children of the kingdom shall be cast out into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And Jesus said unto the centurion, Go thy way, and as thou hast believed, so be it done unto thee. And his servant was healed in the self-same hour. And then again you have issues with Peter's wife's mother and the rest of it. Come back to Matthew chapter 4. 10, thank you. Matthew chapter 4. So, of course, one of the most interesting things and relevant things for us, I mean, it's all relevant in one sense, but in a practical sense, we understand we're not seeing that today. That ministry is not being conducted. That's being conducted in accordance with Israel's program in a particular phase and part and place in the program. But it is fascinating to see the great contrast that exists between the real thing, that ministry, and the stuff that tries to get pawned off today. I mean, just all manner of sickness and all manner of disease. I mean, everything you could possibly imagine. There's no picking, there's no choosing, there's no if, there's no what, there's no kind of maybe, just all manner. Everyone that's brought unto him. No issues of, well, you don't. This person didn't come in a wheelchair, but we put them in a wheelchair, and then we wheeled them up to the front of the aisle, and then they got out of their wheelchair, and we said, "What a marvel!" Even though they didn't even show up in a wheelchair, or if they were in a wheelchair, but they were able to get up anyway. I mean, and the most ridiculous, minute things that you couldn't possibly ever verify, and then when they do attempt to verify it, they show that, oh no, you can't. Nothing actually really happened. I mean, it's just amazing that anyone would even begin to try to compare themselves and their ministry to that. It's not even that it falls short. It doesn't even show up on the map. It's a complete and utter joke. There's absolutely no healing going on whatsoever. You got some people that are manipulated, that feel good, that want something to happen, but nothing to show for it. There ain't no question when Christ comes on the scene what he does. In fact, as you see, you come over to in Matthew chapter 4 and verse 24, and his fame went throughout all Syria, and they brought unto him all sick people that were taken with divers diseases and torments, and those which were possessed with devils, and those which were lunatic, and those that had the palsy, and he healed them. And there followed him great multitudes of people from Galilee, and from Decapolis, and from Jerusalem, and from Judea, and from beyond Jordan. I mean, that's what you call that's a real revival. His fame went throughout that whole region, and people from far and wide were coming to bring whoever they could there. Everybody knew it. Now maybe they couldn't explain it. They were saying, well, we don't know exactly what's going on. We don't know exactly how that's happening. Maybe it's mind over matter. Maybe it's the power of the mind to change the body or something. We can't figure it out. Or maybe there's something else going on. Or maybe he's using some other kinds of powers. Or maybe everybody couldn't figure out how he was doing it. But there was no question about what was going on with him. There was no question that when the lame came to him, they were walking away. When the disease came to him, they were going away cleansed and restored. When the blind came to him, they were going away seeing. There was no question in anyone's mind about it. There was nothing to prove about it. That's a very different situation than what we have today. It's not even close. You don't even have to worry about, well, maybe they're doing it by the power of this. That you might have to worry about that if they were actually doing anything. But they're not producing one cotton-picking thing at all. It's amazing. It's amazing that people would fall for it. But that's how badly people want it. That's how badly people want to believe. But it's not there. All right, verse 24. And his fame went throughout all Syria. Now, and lots of people are getting wind of that. People in high places are getting in wind of it. There are people who don't really want to mess around or touch this Jesus of Nazareth when he's brought before them because they've heard some things about what goes on with him, and precisely because they haven't quite figured everything out. You ever see that movie? Here we go again. I know, but The Green Mile. Remember that? And they had that John Coffey, right? J.C. John Coffey. And he takes people's, he heals them, but he does that by taking on their diseases and infirmities and things like that, and they get healed. Well, you have a situation like that where nobody knows what's going on, right? People can't figure out how it works. Even he doesn't understand really what, how it all works out. But, there's something going on there. And they're very, for people who know actually what's going on, you'd be a little trepidatious before kind of messing around, even if you can't explain it, even though, say, you still had disbelief about it. But you generally, and you think about it today, if you had somebody going around doing that stuff, actually doing it, verifiable, I'm guessing you probably think twice before you started messing around with them. That'd be my guess. Maybe not. Maybe you folks are pretty bold. You don't care. Maybe you would. You'd probably just be ready to stone them. I don't know. Maybe that'd be good. There are going to be folks that are going to be able to do that. They're coming on the scene. There are going to be false prophets which are going to be able to produce that sign. The law and the prophets warned Israel about that. So there's people that they've heard of this Jesus of Nazareth. They know the things they're doing, and they're worried about it. But what's interesting about that is that you should not be surprised, therefore, if you find out about a lot of, let's say, other Christianities that are emerging throughout that area. That says fame. You know what fame is, right? We have TV shows that are called American Idol, and we have shows that are called Fame, and everybody wants fame, and that's what they're living their lives for, and they'll sell their souls to have fame. You know what fame is? That's what he had back then. Fame. That means, you know what that means? That means fame. That means everybody there knew about what was going on. And so you can imagine that not all of them are following him or know the doctrine in truth, in accordance with the doctrine, in accordance with the teaching. A lot of them have their own doctrines concerning Christ. A lot of them will have their own Jesus and a lot of other things, right? So you shouldn't be surprised at all if you find a lot of that historically, because that's exactly what you ought to expect. We've already seen that with respect to a lot of other things in the Bible, Solomon and others. Remember, that word was going out, and there was a great impact. A lot of those nations and Gentiles were hearing about that. You shouldn't be at all surprised if they were having a great impact on a lot of those cultures. So anyway, that's something which is easily overlooked, but that's exactly what it says. His fame went throughout all Syria, and they brought unto him all sick people that were taken with divers diseases and torments, and those which were possessed with devils, and those which were lunatic, and those that had the palsy, and he healed them. And there followed him great multitudes of people from Galilee, and from Decapolis, and from Jerusalem, and from Judea, and from beyond Jordan. Okay, that's where we are now. That's where things stand. He's beginning to shine that light. He's beginning to get fame in connection with that light. It's beginning to have an impact. There are people coming from far and wide. And he's now beginning to actively prepare the people, prepare the nation, going out and searching out and gathering his flock together and healing and restoring them. And now he's going to begin to prepare them and instruct them for exactly what the prophecies and the promises and the program calls for them to be, the kingdom of priests and holy nation, the ones who will be called the priests of God, the ministers of our God, the priests of the Lord, going out there to the Gentiles and shining that light of the righteousness and holiness of God. Next time, as we begin and we prepare in Matthew chapter 5 and verse 1, and seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain, and when he was set, his disciples came unto him. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, I'll see you next time.